It works out well for the government because they don't actually have to gather evidence or do any work. They can simply say, well, remember that 16-count felony indictment? Here's a single misdemeanor. Would you like to sign that? After 3 years, it sounds like a bargain. And another thing is, there is such a thing as a federal misdemeanor. You have no idea how many people do not know this. People who should know. As it says, I tried to pay my fine at the court. The cashier wouldn't ring it up. She said I was lying. She's like, you can't, there's no such thing as a misdemeanor. This fine is wrong. I'll call the judge. I'm like, go for it. She called the judge, and I showed her the paperwork. She's like, oh my God. You're right. She called all of her coworkers over to look at my paperwork. Y'all got to come look at this. And this is North Carolina, so it really was, y'all got to come look at this. She then had to call help desk to figure out how to ring up a misdemeanor fine because she had a felony button. Apparently it was something like shift felony or something, I don't know. But she was on the phone with help desk for a good 20 minutes trying to ring up a $100 fine. The 4 words you never want to see after your name. The grand jury charges. That's probably the most soul-crushing thing you'll ever see. The entire United States of America versus 3 people. Who do you think's going to win? Anyway, the way that a search warrant is typically executed is, the search warrant was so template, they were talking about punched tape paper, they were talking about 9-track tapes. They were like, yeah, you can take optical, magnetic, paper-based. They're looking for paper tape punch readers. They don't know. So what they do is they grab anything plugged into the wall. They tried to take my cable box and my Dreamcast. Becky got pissed off and said, there's no way in hell you're leaving with the cable box. That's a freaking cable box. That can't be evidence. They did take my Dreamcast games, an AIX machine without a hard disk, a 386 in several pieces, random motherboards, and a homebrew 48-volt power supply that was a transformer in some sort of enclosure. If I recall right, it was a coffee can full of sand. I wouldn't touch it. They seized it. As I put, my God is a vengeful God. The little lightning bolt killing them dead. It didn't actually happen, but I'm honestly shocked. As the next slide is titled, hey, they're talking about you on NPR. You see, they took anything I had to consume media other than the television set. I had no idea. So I get calls from friends like, hey man, I just heard this thing. Are you that guy that they're talking about? Yes, that's me. They're like, holy shit, dude, you got arrested. I'm like, yes, I did. You find yourself mentioned in all kinds of wacky articles as like a side reference. This one was from Business Week, and that one was from the Free Press, where they were talking about like some dudes trying to sell some snake oil solution for securing wireless networks, and they referenced my case being used to sell this product now. At the time, according to my friends, searching for my name on Google News was turning up stuff in fricking Chechnya. Just like 2 dudes in a like modem somewhere, and there's like goats walking by, and they got a website, and they're talking about me. And that's some freaky shit. Here's all the places I was mentioned. Every morning drive show in Detroit, NPR, the 6 p.m. audition of Fox 2 News. The opening shot was of the Lowe's. And I didn't need to see any more before I realized this one's about me. We were featured in page 1 of the Oakland section of the Free Press, which is actually the second part of the Free Press, in larger print than Teen Killers Sentenced. 2 hackers from Waterford broke into Lowe's. And the funny part about this is I got up late because, well, they seized my alarm clock. And so I tried to play it cool. I go into the office on Tuesday, just like nothing happened. Like, hey guys, what's up? They're all like gathering around the newspaper. They're like, what? Is this about you? You live in Waterford, right? Like, what? What do you mean? How do you know about that? Like, well, I heard it on the drives in, so I picked up a copy of the Free Press, and you're in there too. Terrific. And my boss was there from California. I guess he noticed I didn't make the plane. And so I was forced to take 6 weeks of vacation time that I had banked up to mount a legal defense. Needless to say, eventually they figured out, okay, there can't, and I should show the indictment, I'll do it afterwards, but there are obvious sections where it's like, this guy was a driver, and there was an unidentified suspect in the passenger seat, hacking at 9:43 on, September 30th or whatever. And they were like, so we're going to charge these 3 people. You do the math. There's 2 people in the car. How can 3 people be charged for this crime? It's easier. Apparently the grand jury doesn't even read what they're about to sign, because there is no counter defense to a grand jury. The prosecutor walks in, they said, hey guys, I know you're a standing grand jury and you've seen about 20 cases today. How's one more? Here's these guys, they're really bad, they steal credit card numbers, y'all want to sign this? That's a lot of pages. Sounds good to me. And then you're charged. You don't get to fight that. You don't even get to find out what they deliberated on, what was going on, what the prosecutor said about you, anything. It's simply, all you get is this indictment, and you're actually not even notified it happened. I found out because somebody looked it up on the internet, and they're like, hey, dude, you got indicted. And I'm like, really? I was wondering if they would do that. So that's the reality of things. They're so disorganized. I never actually received a copy of my own indictment in the mail. Now there's something for you. I was released from probation just after Thanksgiving of 2005. I have no gun restrictions, any restrictions of any sort. I have a Class A misdemeanor on my record. You'd be surprised how many systems run under the assumption that any federal crime is a felony. The National Instant Criminal Check System used for firearm checks can return one of 3 responses: proceed, decline, or deny. Or proceed, deny, or delay. And I've been run through it twice trying to buy firearms. Each time they returned a delay, which after 72 hours it's no longer relevant. They figure that the FFL is then allowed to just give you the gun if they don't reply. Dunham's has a corporate policy not to. I made the mistake of going there first. Obviously the second time I was successful. You're also pretty much, your criminal record appears in the MDT when you get pulled over for pretty much anything. Like, hey, you got a broken headlight. So you're a computer hacker, huh? Did I hack my headlight? They're like, oh, did you break into a computer? Well, yes, I did. Technically, what I pled to was using Lowe's network in March of 2003 to check my email. The store was under construction then, and I did in fact connect to Lowe's and check my email with their stuff. It was all in default configs at that point. It was connected to their corporate WAN, and their DNS servers are open for zone transfers from pretty much anywhere. And I would tell you about the back doors that they installed on their own systems, but frankly, I think they're still there. And so out of courtesy, I'm not going to, but Nmap will show you. It's bad. Don't shop there, for the love of God. The actual response as to why they didn't deploy WEP or MAC address security properly on their access points is WEP is insecure. Sure is. As I say, at least when I die, I'll be remembered for something. Pretty much typing my name into Google will return hits on this for at least 3 pages. And there's a lot of incorrect information out there based on people who haven't actually followed the case but decided they have an opinion on it anyway. There are still plenty of websites that are completely under the idea that Brian Salcedo didn't exist, and it was simply me and Adam. And frankly, as I had told the FBI, look, if I hacked it, we wouldn't have gotten caught. Case in point, I actually had to tell them about the intrusion on the misdemeanor charge. They didn't know what ever happened. But they were like, you come up with something you did, and you can plead to that. And so, Fifth Amendment what? So yeah, that basically there's still things on the internet. People will look at that and think it's actually the truth. And that's where the problem lies. Is there are a lot of irresponsible people out there who don't realize that their words have permanent effect on the internet. They're being archived, they're being searchable, and it would be slander, but they're idiots, so it's not malicious. But I'm going to show you a couple of things just because I think you as an audience will get quite a kick out of them, and I have a hell of a lot of time. After that, I'll take some questions. I'm sure there's plenty. I do like this one so much. My attorney, I actually had to find my own arrest warrant. I logged into Pacer and looked it up. And I sent it to my attorney, who went, "Oh my God, are you serious?" So he wrote a letter to the U.S. attorney. "I realize you're not in the drug unit, but Paul Timmons came across information that he and his co-defendants were the subject of arrest warrants for importation of cocaine. Obviously, there's been some mistake because the Paul Timmons who is named in the arrest warrant is spelled Timmons rather than Timmins. We've determined the warrant was not executed, but we can't find if there is an order recalling it." Funny story about that. I got pulled over for following too closely, going through West Bloomfield on Telegraph. A cop pulls me over, runs my plates. I notice he's not approaching my car. I can't figure out why. 2 more officers in squad cars show up, and they come over the speaker, "Take your keys out of the ignition and put them on the roof of your car." I'm going, what? What did I do now? So they come up and they're like, "Hey, you're Paul Timmons, right?" "Yeah, here's my driver's license," and all this other stuff. They're like, "Cool, step out of the car." "Do you have anything sharp on you?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I typically carry all these, I carry wire cutters. I do. So they took those away from me. They're like, why is this dude carrying wire cutters? God forbid I ever do any wiring. And they were like, "Okay, so do you have any reason why we're arresting you right now?" I'm like, "Well, let me guess. There's probably a warrant in there saying that I broke into something on a computer." And they're like, "Actually, there is for computer intrusion." I'm like, "Funny that. I was arrested for that about 1.5 years ago." And they're like, "Really?" "Yeah, actually. It happened in Southfield." They're like, "Oh, well, here, cuff yourself, and we'll put you in the back of the car while we figure this out." And so here's where I actually got to find out the MDTs say this sort of thing. He puts me in the back of the car, and I actually convince him to show me how the MDT works while he's waiting.